You know the songs, but do you know their history? Join us for an in-depth look at the stories behind the biggest songs in the world. This is Encore. The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Welcome to, or welcome back to, another episode of Encore with me, Miles Galloway. Stories behind some of the biggest ever songs. Here's the story of Taylor Swift's We Are Never, Ever Getting Back Together. In 2012, Taylor Swift was one of the biggest country music stars in the world. She was also one of the biggest pop stars in the world too. And like her hero Shania Twain before her, Taylor was able to walk a tightrope between the two genres, something that many artists had failed to do. But many fans and critics felt it was just a matter of time before Taylor made the switch to full-on pop star, leaving country behind her. Taylor always seemed to have her eyes set on becoming a pop star, despite being one of country music's most recognizable names. Her 2008 single Love Story was the first country song to top Billboard's pop chart in the chart 16 years. And while country music has also had its place at the Grammys, Taylor shocked the world by winning Album of the Year for Fearless, an honor generally reserved for more established, less country-leaning artists. But I don't think anyone will ever forget what happened at the 2009 MTV Video Music Awards. Just as Taylor was accepting the award for Best Female Video, Kanye West spoiled the moment by upstaging her.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
Just like that, Kanye became public enemy number one, and Taylor was deemed America's sweetheart. By the time she released her next album in 2010, Taylor Swift was well on her way to becoming a pop star first and foremost. Taylor Swift's third album, Speak Now, was a phenomenal success when it was released in November 2010, selling more copies in its first week than any country artist ever. More than anything, Taylor showed greater maturity as a songwriter, giving a more adult perspective on love through themes of heartbreak and revenge that hit close to home for her growing army of Swifties. At the same time, Taylor was becoming an A-list celebrity. She tried her hand at acting, starring in the star-studded rom-com Valentine's Day, hosting Saturday Night Live, and even portraying a dead teenager on an episode of CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. She also began dating A-list stars like John Mayer and Jake Gyllenhaal, which made her an easy target for the tabloids. As fame and fortune came a-knockin', so did her desire to break free from country music's hold on her career. Although she was still winning just about every country music award being handed out, Taylor had her sights set on a new sound that would make her the biggest artist in the world. Taylor Swift began writing music for her fourth album with regular collaborator Nathan Chapman. When Scott Borchetta, head of her label Big Machine, approached her about finishing the album, she told him it was missing something. In a 2012 interview with Yahoo Music, she recalled telling Borchetta that, "I think it's good, but I don't think it's different enough. And I don't think we're covering enough new ground here." Usually, Taylor worked either alone or in a closed circle of collaborators, so she had a decision to make. She recalls, "My comfort zone is writing songs alone, so I just thought, what if I were to indulge those curiosities that I've always had?" Swift immediately thought of someone who could help, so they called Max, as in Max Martin, arguably the most successful pop writer and producer of the past 25 years. Martin had secured massive hits with the likes of Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Katy Perry, and Britney Spears. So naturally, he was the perfect fit for Taylor Swift. Taylor had long admired Martin's ability to elevate a song with his distinctive flair for melody, an almost mathematical approach to finding the right hook. Since I was old enough to understand what a songwriter/producer is, I've had a curiosity about how Max Martin creates what he creates, she told Yahoo Music. I wanted to see that happen. I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn from him. Taylor got her wish. Along with his protege, Johann Shellback Schuster, Max Martin co-produced 3 songs for Taylor's new album, and the two would continue to work with her on future recordings. With their help, Taylor was now in a position to redefine herself as an artist, and the first step in this transformation was to come up with a name for her album that can demonstrate how she was feeling. Taylor told Much Music at the time,
"You know, red is a really bold and intense color, and it's really kind of daring, and I felt like, that color and that word really kind of defines the album for me. And that's why I can't wait for everyone to hear it. It's something really new. I think, Red is so amazing because it can be love or frustration and anger and or like, butterflies and having a crush on someone or like hating your ex. Not that I've ever felt that way.
Of course, Taylor has never felt that way. Never, ever felt that way. A funny little thing happened to Taylor while she was working on the album.
We were in the studio, and I was in the studio with these two amazing writers and producers named Max Martin and Shellback, and they are fantastic. We're in the studio, and we're working on a completely different song. And this guy walks in who was, like, friends with my ex, and at this point, we'd broken up, like, an embarrassing amount of times. And so this guy walks in and he's like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. Never got to meet you before, but I'm friends with so-and-so. I hear you guys are going to get back together." And I'm just like, I'm in the studio with my heroes. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to write a song about something else. I'm like, and immediately, like, after he left, I just looked to Max and I was like, it's weird. It's like, we are never getting back together. Like, ever. We are never getting back together. And I just kind of went on this rant, and he's like, "We need to write that song, actually, like right now." It just happened.
Yeah,
so if that dude hadn't walked in, we wouldn't have the song, and it's been the craziest, fastest rising song I've ever had.
Of course, Taylor's never gone on record to say who the guy is that she will never, ever, ever get back together with, but the countless gossip sites on the internet sure seem to think it was Oscar-nominated actor Jake Gyllenhaal. The two dated for 3 months at the end of 2010. And despite keeping it somewhat private, they were photographed together on a few different occasions. Taylor shared more about the ex she immortalized in the song, telling USA Today, "The song, quote, is a definitive portrait of how I felt when I finally stopped caring what my ex thought of me. He made me feel like I wasn't as good or as relevant as these hipster bands he listened to, so I made a song that I knew would absolutely drive him crazy when he heard it on the radio. Not only would it hopefully be played a lot so that he'd have to hear it, but it's the opposite of the kind of music that he was trying to make me feel inferior to." Taylor immortalized this feeling of inferiority on a next single with the lines, "And you would hide away and find your peace of mind with some indie record that's much cooler than mine." The funny thing is, if we fast forward 8 years and 4 albums later, Taylor ended up making 2 cool indie records with members of The National and Bon Iver. And yeah, they were pretty cool. I think it's safe to say that Mr. Gyllenhaal probably had those records on repeat. Who didn't? Taylor premiered We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together during a live chat with fans that was streamed through Google+. Remember that social media platform? Yeah, no, me neither. Upon its release, Taylor had people grasping for terms to describe her new sound by using new elements like backwards masking effects and synthesizer swells and giving it an unapologetic pop song structure. Critics called it everything from bubblegum pop and pop punk to electro-pop and electro-folk. And with this new single, Taylor had gone and ditched country music. Well, not entirely. She did release a country version of We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together that was essentially the same song with some banjo on it. But now, all of a sudden, she was a full-fledged pop star, defying conventions. Taylor explained to Much Music at the time.
For me, I just really wanted every single song to sound the way that the feelings felt in my head. So that's kind of like a tightrope to walk on. You just want to get it right emotionally. Like, to me, if the song, like if what I was feeling felt really frantic and chaotic, that's how I wanted the production to be. So I didn't think of it as much as like, you can't use these instruments, you can only use these instruments. I just wanted to make a record that sounded how those emotions felt.
The emotions were definitely felt. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together became a go-to kiss-off anthem for everyone in need of one. With its stomping 4/4 beat, blast-off chorus, and sass-filled dialogue, Taylor flipped the script for sad breakup songs, instead turning in an empowering yet fun sing-along romp. What good would a song this big be without a video that exuded the same kind of energy? When it came to adding visuals to We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, Taylor sought the services of someone she could trust. She brought in Declan Whitebloom, who'd previously directed videos for her songs Mean and Ours. Whitebloom pitched the video treatment as one continuous shot with no edits, which in the end helped him get the gig. He would tell the Film and Digital Times, quote, "She's somebody who wants to try something different, wants to be adventurous. And that did it for her. It's a new single. They wanted to make a splash with the video." According to Taylor, it took a total of 17 takes to get to the version you see today. She wears 5 different outfits in the video, which required some lightning-fast costume changes to pull it off. She told MTV News, quote, "Anytime you see me off screen, I'm ripping one costume off and putting a new one on. All modesty had to go out the window. All my clothes were put together with Velcro and snaps so that I could have 3 different outfits layered on top of each other. The costume changes were really hectic. We did them in real time. It was crazy. At one point, I had a breaking point. I can't do 5 costume changes. There's not enough time." But we ended up being able to do it. Luckily for Taylor's band, they only had to wear one costume, furry animal suits. However, when they showed up on set, they weren't told until the very last minute they'd be dressed as critters. All of a sudden, they wheel in their costume rack full of animal costumes, and they were so mad, Taylor told MTV News. It was hilarious. They were so angry. It took a couple hours, but they finally embraced it. It ended up being absolutely hilarious. They are really funny in that video. They owned it. As for the hunky guy that Taylor never ever wants to get back together with, well, he's a model/actor from Toronto named Noah Mills, who currently stars on NCIS Hawaii. But I'm sure even he would say playing Taylor's ex was his finest work. Taylor recreated the video for the song at the 2012 MTV Video Music Awards, and at the end of the performance, she stage dived into the crowd as the camera panned to a different ex-boyfriend of hers, Taylor Lautner. Awkward. But Taylor didn't stop there. She performed the song again at the Grammy Awards, this time with an elaborate circus-like stage design where her ex was tied to a spinning wheel. It didn't make a ton of sense, but one highlight came of it. When she speaks the line, so he calls me up and he's like, "I still love you." She used an English accent, which many took as some shade thrown at her most recent breakup at the time, Harry Styles. Way to use one song against multiple ex-boyfriends, Taylor. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together was a massive hit for Taylor and set her on a new path in her career. It was nominated for Record of the Year at the Grammys and won Top Country Song at the Billboard Music Awards, which is kind of funny since it's not really a country song. Is it? No, it's not. The song even earned an entry into the 2014 edition of the Guinness Book of Records after it became the fastest-selling digital single just 50 minutes after its release. But more importantly, it was Taylor's first song to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 both in the US and Canada. Like the rest of the album, Taylor re-recorded the song for the 2021 release of Red, Taylor's version. Some critics claim they could hear subtle differences, like a stronger delivery of "we" than before, or a little extra venom, maybe, in how she says, "trust me." But they were likely trying too hard to find something different. To most, it was just as good as the original. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together may not be the most streamed or the most viewed song of Taylor's career, but you could make a case for its importance in shaping her legacy. The song elevated her status from country's hottest young star to the most dominant, the most influential singer and songwriter in pop music so far this century. Where would she be now without the success of We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together? Who knows? But the song remains to be an important one. And you know what? It's still a bop. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Taylor Swift, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, from Encore, an iHeartRadio podcast.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these. This is Encore. The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Oh yes, back like I never left. And here on Encore, we've often looked back at songs that really strapped the rocket to an artist into the mainstream after years of toiling as underground hype. Or we've shared stories of sudden inspiration and last chance risk-taking from artists that fans knew as one thing and transformed them into superstars. This week's episode is not such an episode because this week, it's Britney, bitch. So with that being said, with a taste of your lips, I'm on a ride. I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Britney Spears' Toxic. By early 2004, Britney Spears had firmly established herself at the pinnacle of pop music. Britney had already claimed the title of being the best-selling teenage artist of all time, thanks to the successes of her albums Baby One More Time and Oops, I Did It Again. And she'd just become the youngest artist to be included into the Hollywood Walk of Fame, aged 21. Britney had also already gone a whopping 26 times platinum for her first 3 mega hit records released in 99, 2000, and 2001. And she would quickly add another 2 million records to that tally for her 2003 effort In the Zone, essentially as soon as it was released. Britney, of course, remained humble through it all, telling Much's Nam Kiwanuka at the time.
Because you're barely like in your 20s and you've done all these things and you've broken all these records and that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's very nice. And that's flattering that people say that.
Does it make you, why don't you like I would be like, yeah, I'm an icon.
Because when you think of icon, you think it's like, oh, she's so formal. And yeah, she's got to be like this now. Or like, and it's just, I don't know, it's very flattering and I love what I do, and I think that's what it boils down to. That's why I've done so much, because I genuinely, that's what drives me to, wake up every morning, is because I love singing and dancing and doing that. So, I'm just trying not to think about it. Ugh. So,
really?
Yeah.
You're very humble.
Well, thank you.
Now, you're in the eve of the release of your fourth album, and a lot of expectations, not just from other people. What do you expect for yourself? What expectations do you have for yourself?
Honestly, I'm at the point where I don't really think it's about like selling 50 million records or Like, I think I've kind of like gone that route of selling a bunch of records and stuff. And it's really just about the enjoyment of what I do and just, pushing myself and challenging myself each time and getting more, creative, like with videos and exploring new ideas. And like I said, challenging myself. It's not about, let me see how many records I could sell. I'm just really enjoying what I do right now. And, hopefully that will speak for itself and people like it. You know what I mean?
Released only a number of weeks after Madonna, Britney and fellow pop diva Christina Aguilera shocked the world by sharing a cringy yet captivating kiss at the 2003 VMAs during a Madonna medley. Mwah. In the Zone's first single, Me Against the Music, featuring Madonna, represented the official torch passing from Madonna to Spears. Speaking of the kiss at the time, Britney was pretty progressive about it, claiming that it wasn't done for whatever shock value the public had prescribed on it, and that it was just another example of two girls kissing in America. She told Much.
Actually, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. Like, we didn't, how many people have you seen in America that have kissed another girl? And then that was really one portion. It was cool though. It was cool. I've never kissed a girl before, so.
On the rate of all the kisses that you've ever had, what did it rate?
What did it rate? It was so fast. I don't even remember. It was really. Watching back though, I thought it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, we look kind of hot. We look kind of cool. But no, I didn't really. At the moment, I wasn't like turned on or anything.
Compared to her previous successes, and considering both Britney and Madonna were so deeply in the public consciousness thanks to that VMA's makeout, Me Against the Music was actually a modest hit for the two artists. The debut single from In the Zone peaked at a very un-Britney-like number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US, although it did make it to number 2 in the UK and here in Canada, something I like to call the Miles Galloway effect, for no good reason whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, the song was still pretty good. And funnily enough, critics mostly only panned the legendary Madonna's involvement in Me Against the Music's, with Nick Southall of Stylist magazine cruelly stating, quote, Madonna bleeds another period of forced longevity into her career, like a corpse leaking plasma backwards, but can't make it a bad tune. Yeah, IGN called the track, quote, ultimately forgettable other than it's the music counterpart fallout to and from the duo's lip-lock publicity stunt on the MTV VMAs. Whatever side of the fence you found yourself on with Me Against the Music, it wouldn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, because, like the album title implied, Britney Spears was in the zone, and as 2003 turned 2004, we were all about to go on a ride. It's wild to think that in a different world, Toxic would have not been a Britney Spears song at all. English songwriter Kathy Dennis had originally penned the bones of the song with Janet Jackson in mind, but had also offered it to Kylie Minogue. Dennis and Minogue had previously had success together with Kylie's disco banger Can't Get You Out of My Head in 2001, so you would think it was a sure thing she'd pick up Toxic too. But Minogue eventually passed on the song, and Dennis and her co-writers Henrik Johnbank, Christian Carlson, and Pontus Winberg continued to shop it around. Strangely, Carlson and Winberg, known as Bloodshy and Avant at the time, were quoted as saying that they weren't really planning on crafting a pop hit, and that they were simply experimenting with different sounds in the studio, with Carlson saying, we certainly didn't have Britney in mind. It wasn't like her stuff at all. But now, that's Britney's sound. Minogue would later tell The Sun, "I knew that Britney was keen on it. I wasn't angry when it worked for Britney. It's like the fish that got away. You just have to accept it." And keen on it, she definitely was. Britney told Music Plus in 2003, before anyone in the public had heard it, that Toxic was one of her favorites on In the Zone.
But that and I like Toxic for some reason.
Toxic, yeah.
Actually, I didn't write that song, but Bloodshot wrote that, and Kathy Dennis.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
They're so good, and they're so musically, like, brilliant.
Kathy Dennis and the Swedish Three were not the only composers on Toxic, though, and I'm not alluding to Britney herself. This was one of the few songs on In the Zone that she actually didn't have a co-writing credit on. A huge amount of credit for Toxic's sound has to go to a composer duo not well known in the Western world, but hugely influential musicians in their own right. Laxmikan Shantaram Kudalkar and Pieralal Ramprasad Sharma were an Indian composer duo that worked on scores with the who's who of Hindi films from the 1960s through to Kudalkar's death in 1998. Their song Terry Mary Beach Main from a 1981 Hindi romantic tragedy film was sampled, mashed up, and re-recorded in bits and pieces for Toxic, giving the song its unique Bollywood vibe. The producers really do a number on it, so if you're rushing to YouTube right now to hear the comparison, it will take a very keen ear to hear the sampling. But it very much is there. Maybe I'll put the link in the show notes for you to save you some time. You're welcome. The searing violin samples mixed with the James Bondian guitar riffs is really unlike anything Britney had released before, and it makes the song both futuristic and timeless all at once. In the best possible way, the song is kind of disorienting and haunting. Britney's echoing falsetto in the bridge mixes with the song's poisonous lyrics perfectly, and the samples stopping and starting so urgently brings a sort of euphoric relief when the classic chorus finally hits. It's not a bold statement to say that Britney Spears herself has been a major influence on pop music. That's pretty obvious. But Toxic is heavily credited by many critics and fans alike as ushering a new electro-pop influenced sound into the mainstream that is still present in music literally 20 years later. Look at artists like Tate McRae, Dua Lipa, Charlie XCX among its likely disciples. Simply put, the song is intoxicating. No matter who you are or what you're into musically, you can't help but admit, Toxic is a hit. If by some slim chance you weren't addicted to Toxic by simply hearing it, the music video would prove to give you your fix. The iconic music video, directed by Joseph Kahn, starts with sultry flight attendant Britney delivering drinks to stuffy high rollers in first class of an airplane. She chases a mild-mannered and schlubby man into the plane's toilet and begins to join the Mile High Club with him before, shock surprise, she rips off his face and he's an undercover male model super spy in disguise. Didn't see that one coming. Britney steals a high-tech security pass from the sexy man's pocket during their hookup sesh and jumps onto the back of popular male model at the time, Tyson Beckford, who's shirtless and driving a Ducati motorcycle at super high speed. Britney then makes her way to Toxic Industries laboratory to steal some heavily secured poison. A red-haired Britney does an amazingly choreographed dance scene through the Toxic Lab security lasers, but she trips on one of the lasers, which doesn't seem to matter. Oh, who cares? It was sexy. A raven-haired Britney then turns into an assassin and scales a building using suction climbers to confront a cheating ex-boyfriend. She seduces him, obviously, pours the toxic goo in his mouth, seals it with a kiss, and jumps out the window to escape, once again returning to a simple life of flight attendants. Joseph Kahn confirmed that year to MTV, by the way. She kills that ex-boyfriend. He's dead. Sorry, buddy. Wait, hold on. I'm forgetting something. Oh, yes, the diamonds! Within the first 30 seconds of our sexy spy story, the music video for Toxic is intercut with Britney Spears in one of her most iconic looks. Fully naked, if not for strategically placed and stunningly vibrant diamonds. Despite popular belief, and because it's kind of hard to tell, Britney is not wearing a thin or skin-toned body stocking with diamonds strewn on it. She really is just wearing a net of diamonds over her bare skin. And that diamond suit was Britney's idea, with Kahn saying, "I wasn't sure what I was thinking about when she told me about that scene. Maybe those iconic intros to James Bond movies." But every video needs an iconic image to remember, and that's it. For the nude scenes, the set of the video was cleared to a skeleton staff, leaving only Kahn, his cinematographer, and his editor on site to avoid any photo leaks. To this day, the diamonds are quintessential Britney Spears. A woman at the height of her powers, having total freedom over how she wanted to express herself as the world's biggest pop star. The music video reportedly cost $1 million to produce, but I think we'd all agree it was money well spent. Some 11 years later, Joseph Kahn would go on to direct another Super Spy music video for the biggest pop star on the planet. This time, though, it was the iconic video for Taylor Swift's Bad Blood. Taylor's red hair look in the video is a direct homage to Britney and the Toxic video's influence on pop culture. And I mean, with the same director, why wouldn't you? I wonder if it was the same wig. Wouldn't you know it, even years after their breakup, Justin Timberlake inadvertently had an adverse effect on Britney's career. In February 2004, soon after the infamous Nipplegate, where Timberlake exposed Janet Jackson's bare breasts during the Super Bowl halftime show, Toxic and 5 other music videos were shifted to being played only after 10 p.m. on MTV, as to not offend anyone due to a, quote, particular sensitivity in the culture right now. Boo! That was boo, not boob. I mean, seriously, what did Britney do? Seems a little unfair, don't you think? Unbelievably, Toxic won 0 major awards for its music video, losing its nominations for Best Female, Dance, Pop, and Video of the Year at the VMAs, losing to the likes of Beyoncé, Usher, No Doubt, Outkast in their categories. On Billboard's Hot 100 charts, it peaked at a respectable number 9, which in no way makes it some sort of underground hit, but it does show that in 2004, we just weren't fully ready for it. Of course, like I mentioned, In the Zone sold a near immediate 2 million copies upon its release, and has recently clocked another million to that tally, with Toxic reaching 6 times platinum status in the US, and it was number 1 here in Canada and in the UK after all. Toxic also has the somewhat shocking distinction of being Britney's singular Grammy win, winning the award for Best Dance Recording in 2005. Realistically, though, maybe all of that is a good thing, as Toxic is transcendent of the need of critical or industry accolades. Its legacy is one of a song that truly transformed pop music as quickly and precisely as the Super Spy choreography in the video itself. Rolling Stone's Rob Sheffield put it brilliantly in 2022 when he named Toxic Britney Spears' greatest song of all time, saying, quote, "It's the great pop song of this century, the ultimate Britney Spears classic. A taste of poison paradise, Toxic is all that and more. Summing up Britney at her best and brashest, Toxic is a swirl of spaced out glam disco kicks, spy movie strings, surf guitar twang, a beat that should wear a warning. She doesn't just take a sip from the devil's cup, she guzzles that bitch and crushes the cup on her forehead. Slipping under the addictive spell of music itself, the one vice she'll never give up." Whew. Well, the seatbelt signs are off. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Britney Spears' Toxic on Encore, with new episodes every Thursday.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these. This is Encore. Cool. The stories behind the songs. Thank you. Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
How you doing, young lady? This podcast that I'm giving is going to drive you crazy. Hi, I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Nelly Furtado's Promiscuous. Since the turn of the millennium, Nelly Furtado has been cementing her legacy as one of Canada's most successful pop stars. The Victoria, BC native went from unknown newcomer to overnight sensation in 2000 with the release of her debut single, I'm Like a Bird. That song won her a Grammy Award for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance over heavyweights like Janet Jackson and Sade. At a time when music was obsessed with teen pop, nu metal, and hip-hop, Nelly emerged with a genre-hopping sound that felt very much her own. She struck gold with her debut album, Whoa Nelly, which spawned 2 hit singles, I'm Like a Bird, and the other one, Turn Off the Light. The album demonstrated Nelly's unique ability to float from one style to another, channeling folk, Latin, trip-hop, and a contemporary pop sound that established her almost immediately on radio and music television. Nelly told Hussein Madavji in 2006,
I had been really influenced by Beck and Corner Shop, this band from the UK that mixed their Indian heritage with pop music. And I thought, hey, why don't I mix my Portuguese heritage with pop music and throw some Brazilian stuff in there? And that was the whole concept behind Whoa Nelly, my first album.
Under the guidance of production team Track and Field, which consisted of her mentor Gerald Eaton and his musical partner Brian West, better known as members of Toronto band The Philosopher Kings, Nelly found the support she needed to blossom as an artist. She was ready for superstardom. For her second album, 2003's Folklore, yes, Nelly beat Taylor Swift to the title 17 years prior. Nelly chose to take a more focused path for her music, crediting her pregnancy at the time as the reason for its mellower direction. Nelly wanted to create a modern folk record. We focused a little more on the songwriting than on the frenetically switching genre 5 times in one song, the way we did it on the last record, she told Interview magazine. Folklore featured a variety of instruments like the banjo, the Portuguese ukulele, and the dulcimer, as well as Força, which Nelly sung in her parents' native Portuguese. That song even gained a ton of exposure when it was chosen as the official theme of Euro 2004. Held in Portugal. Sadly, they lost to Greece in the final. But in the end, the album proved to be both a critical and commercial disappointment. Well, with the exception of Germany, that is, Folklore reached the top 5 in Deutschland, which even puzzled Nelly. Why do Germans love this album? She said to CBC in an interview. Nelly knew that Folklore was worth the gamble in the end, despite the response to it paling in comparison to Whoa Nelly's success.
You're always better off at the end of the day, because no matter if people love it or hate it, you'll know that it was what you wanted to do. The extreme opposite would be you were trying to conform to what you thought people wanted.
Right.
And then everyone hates it. And then you blame yourself because it wasn't really what you intended.
Wanted.
Yeah.
Right. I see.
But before she could attempt to bounce back, Nelly was dealt a blow when her label DreamWorks was sold to Universal Music and her record deal was absorbed by Geffen. This meant she'd be working with a new team that would be assigned to her. Luckily, Nelly already had a vision for her next release. Nelly wanted to make something that was smooth but sexy, universal, epic, iconic, she told Fader in 2016. Madonna's massive comeback album, Ray of Light, was her main inspiration and the template she began working from. Before she even had a note of music recorded, she had the title for her third album, which she conceived out of the blue years prior. She told Hussein Madavji,
"This is a term that it's kind of funny. I usually have these visions way before stuff happens in my life. And about 5 years ago, I remember thinking, I want my third album to be called Loose. And I could picture the cover and I could picture the concept. And really, it was just going to be me kind of laying back and expressing more of the hip-hop side that I usually just show on collaborations. Like I've worked with The Roots, Jurassic 5, Missy Elliott again, as well as members. Different hip-hop groups. And I always had fun doing those collabos, but I never included that sound, per se, on my own records. My plastic records are more pristine pop sound.
Right.
And this album's more rough around the edges. It almost has when I say rock, I don't mean tons of guitars and whatever. I just mean it has an edge to it and off-the-cuffness. It's loud, extremely loud. It has some wrong notes. Some of the bass is kind of distorted. My vocals, some of the lyrics I wrote in 5 seconds. Some I spent more time writing. But it's not the point. The point, it has this amazing feel that's very casual, natural, and it's almost like reality TV. When you watch reality TV and it's exciting to see things happen spontaneously, we've included those things on the album. So there's skits where you hear us talking while we're making the record.
Yeah, you're laughing.
Yeah.
In the record.
Yeah, so it's a whole concept.
The first step for Nelly was to decide on who to work with. Having worked closely with producers Track and Field on her first 2 albums, she began there, but quickly realized it was time for a change, especially knowing she wanted to flirt with hip-hop.
I like to show people different sides of me. Like in the future, I want to do a jazz record. I want to do a really folky acoustic record. I like to keep exploring. I thought it was time. I thought people wanted to hear that from me, wanted to hear that louder sort of urban sound from me, and I'm kind of giving the fans that this time around.
Nelly went into the studio with Canadian acts like Jellystone, Swollen Members, and Kanan to source out a vibe. Jumped across the pond to London to work with Nelly Hooper, another Nelly, then to Los Angeles with Lester Mendez. It wasn't until Nelly reached Miami, though, that things started to come together. She recorded some demos with in-demand guys like Pharrell Williams and Scott Storch, but none of them would end up on her record. During a meeting with Interscope president Jimmy Iovine, Nelly was referred to work with Timbaland, who was riding high from his recent success with Justin Timberlake. Nelly first met Timbaland in 2000 when she jumped on a remix of Missy Elliott's Get Your Freak On, which the famed hip-hop producer worked on. That remix earned Nelly some street cred from hip-hop fans that weren't aware of I'm Like a Bird. Timbaland later repaid the favor by remixing Nelly's Turn Off the Light, so a rapport was already in the works when the two decided to meet in Miami. On the set of the Promiscuous video, Timbaland told Much Music's Sarah Taylor why he wanted to work with Nelly Furtado.
What is it about Nelly that you wanted to work with her?
Because she's an artist. She has a lot of beliefs, just like she's a strong female. She got a lot of belief, and she's very talented. And I always wanted like somebody like that on my label, you know. She's just a strong female to me.
Nelly met up with Timbaland and his prodigy Danger Hands at the Hit Factory, and they got to work right away. That's what my fiance calls me in the kitchen, Danger Hands. It didn't take long for things to heat up in the studio, though. No, quite literally. They were making fire from day one.
The first day in the studio, you think I'm lying, but I'm not. We were jamming on this song. It's a track that became Man Eater is what it's called. And the volume was so loud that we started to smell smoke. We're like, what is that? And we looked and smoke shot out of the speaker and a flame shot out.
So the track was too hot?
Yes. We were all jamming so hard. You know when you're at a live show and it's crazy energy? Like that, but in the studio, it was hot.
As things got hot in there, oh no, different Nelly and Timbaland were busy building their chemistry. One thing Nelly knew she had to nail down, though, was her groove as a dancer. She got some help from her Miami friends and a choreographer who taught her how to, quote, shake my booty properly. She told MTV News, it's an important skill. There's a craft to it. You can be one of those girls who think they can do it. Oh yeah, I'm going to shake my booty. But if you're with Timbaland in the studio, no. Nelly and Timbaland also experimented with quick ideas, jamming a lot, and making what she called weird alien sounds. Taking inspiration from current rock bands they were listening to, like Block Party, Death from Above 1979, and System of a Down, to classic artists such as Blondie, Talking Heads, Madonna, and Prince, they wanted the record to be loud, distorted, and off the cuff, she told Rolling Stone. The album began to take shape from its preordained title. She told Much Music's Sarah Taylor.
Loose. It's more a musical thing. Loose is like conceptually, this album is void of concept, which kind of gives it its flavor. There are like skits of me laughing and talking in between the songs. There's some out of tune notes. There's some questionable lyrics. There's some rawness to the sound. It's very loud. It doesn't have a traditional pop sound. It's not as clean sounding as some pop music. Particularly my first two albums. I love them. Very pristine sounding. The new album is more raw. Volume-wise, very loud, very fun, very dancey. A lot of hip-hop and R&B, which my previous records kind of didn't delve into in such a literal fashion. This new record is very literal with the hip-hop and the R&B references. It's something I grew up on from when I was, 10 or 11 years old, started listening to exclusively R&B pop.
The Hit Factory became the place to be in Miami, so much so that none of them felt the need to go out and take in the city's vibrant nightlife. They had all they needed where they were. In her label bio, Nelly said there was no need to hit the clubs because the party was in the studio. Timbaland is one of those magnetic, larger-life personalities. He lives like a rock star. Producers really are the new rock stars. They have the huge mansions, they drive a different fancy car to the studio every day, they've got beautiful women around. People show up with briefcases full of cash and say, give me a beat. It was a really exciting environment to be part of. Visitors were coming in and out of the studio. Coldplay frontman Chris Martin, who Nelly befriended years before, shared a mutual admiration with Timbaland, who was obsessed with Coldplay's X and Y album. After hanging out and jamming on some tunes, Martin unexpectedly came up with the title All Good Things Come to an End when he expressed his disappointment in having to leave. Although his label wouldn't sign off on him singing along with Nelly, he did receive a co-writer credit for the song. Regular collaborator Justin Timberlake also joined them in the Hit Factory to record a song for Nelly's album called Crowd Control, but that song never made the cut. Sorry, JT. Still, he did appear in the music video for Promiscuous. More on that later. And although she wasn't credited as a collaborator, Nelly's daughter Nevis was keeping her mum on her feet and giving the music a boost of energy.
The album has this youthful energy to it, and I think part of the reason is because I'm around this 2-year-old every day who's so alive, So I feel that liveliness too, and it just feels good.
As the album was taking shape, Nelly began to see she was changing as an artist.
I feel good about it. I feel like it's a reveal, like another side of myself. Because I think, again, with fans and everything, it's nice to kind of show different sides of yourself as an artist. And this is just one side, and I do have a sensual side.
The whole world was about to see a new side to Nelly Furtado, and she was ready to show it off.
Like my first single is called Promiscuous, and it's a club track. It's a very unapologetic, sexy club song.
It's very hot, by the way, I gotta say.
And I'm rapping on it, you know? And it's like, at first I was like, I don't know if I could do it. And
Released in April 2006, the first single from Nelly Furtado's third album, Loose, introduced a new era for the 27-year-old singer. Appearing on Much Music's MOD, Nelly excitedly announced her rebirth.
It's a sexier album, but I'm 27 years old. I'm a woman. I can work it.
Can you teach me how to work it? Before he brought Sexy back with Justin Timberlake later in the year, Timbaland established it with Nelly Furtado and Promiscuous. The sultry duet finds the two countering each other with flirtatious chat-up lines over a mischievous beat.
We always had a chemistry. And this time it really brought it all out. Like by us working together, she listened to me, she takes direction. Like I'm my own person to listen to. So it's a great thing. Like if I tell her to go this way, she'll go this way. She's not scared to take no steps. So it's a great marriage.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that she's not afraid to take direction from you?
Because it's like we learn to trust one another. You know what I'm saying? I listen to her side of a story. She listens to my side of a story. And it's called building, like a friendship and a relationship. It's like, like a girlfriend and boyfriend, I guess.
At first, Nelly wasn't sure if it was the right song for her. A woman singing about promiscuity. Would she be judged or shamed for it? That title could easily be taken the wrong way. But in channeling confident female artists like TLC and Salt and Pepper, Nelly presented a strong female character on equal ground with Timbaland's swaggering male character. Together, they turned their raps into a horny back-and-forth routine. Sorry, Mum. Just two people on the pool. In an interview with Blender magazine, Nelly clarified that the song is not about sex, but verbal foreplay, saying, Tim and I called it the Blackberry song because everything we say in the song, you could text message to somebody. Wait, did Nelly Furtado invent sliding into the DMs?
They're very much the guy and the girl using that word in a playful exchange. It's a dance song, though. It's definitely for, like most Timbaland beats, it's for shaking, it's for moving. And, it was something I hesitated to do at first, but then when I let myself do it, it was so fun that I couldn't deny how natural I sounded. It's just like kind of rapping back and forth. Yeah. It's very easy for me to get in that little vibe. It was just a concept Tim came up with, and he sang the chorus, and quite honestly, it's the first song in 20 years of writing songs that I haven't written the lyrics for. I wrote a couple of lines, and it kind of makes it more fun in a way, because it's like this collaboration I did with Timbaland, and it's very much a club track. It's an unapologetic club song about hanging out and meeting somebody and talking about maybe what's gonna happen.
Maybe.
What ended up happening was Promiscuous becoming the song of the summer in 2006. Promiscuous took Nelly back to the top of the charts. She topped both the Hot 100 in the US and the Canadian singles chart for the first time ever. The song was ubiquitous, reaching the pop charts, dance charts, R&B and hip-hop charts, and even Latin charts. The music video was a big part of the song's success. Although it's a straightforward concept of two people in a club, the chemistry between Nelly and a newly fit Timbaland is straight up fire. And yes, that is Justin Timberlake making a cameo appearance for no reason whatsoever. Directed by Toronto's Little X, who now goes by Director X, the video made a conscious decision to show both sexy women and men dancing in the club. As Little X told Much Music on location for the video shoot, it was all about giving everyone some eye candy.
They're just, having fun with it. Two young people saying, hey, I'm all by myself. Why don't you come on over? Oh, give me some attention.
Hang out?
Hang out with me, yeah.
We can hang out.
Let's talk. There's dancing. There's going to be a lot of dancing in this video. Okay. It's to represent the, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Directing a lot of hip-hop videos and that kind of stuff. I don't want to say booty girls. I'm not going to say that. But video girls who are dancing, we always have the stereotype of that. But in this video, you chose to include a lot of guy dancers.
Well, I chose, I guess this is because Nelly is female and Timbaland is male. So we got girls to look at for Tim, and then we got guys for Nelly. So
it only makes sense.
It only makes sense. So everyone will be happy.
Why leave out the fun for the ladies?
Exactly. I'm surprised, actually. I'm surprised no woman has made the response video after all these years.
The video for Promiscuous ruled the airwaves on both MTV and Much Music in the summer of 2006. Nelly and Timbaland performed the song at the 2006 Much Music Video Awards, and it was nominated for Best Dance, Best Pop, and Best Female Video that year at the MTV VMAs. Perhaps the video's greatest achievement, however, was in getting hilariously spoofed on Mad TV by Nicole Parker and a pre-famed Jordan Peele. Instead of Promiscuous, they called it Syphilis Girl. Here's a sample of the chorus. Hey, syphilis girl, tell me what the fuck. You left your mark all over my trunk. Hey, syphilis boy, better review. Did you get it from me or did I get it from you? It was a classic, I tell you. Nelly's third album, Loose. Sorry, how am I meant to follow that? Nelly's third album, Loose, arrived 2 months after Promiscuous and became the biggest release of her career. It produced 3 more hits, Maneater, Say It Right, and All Good Things Come to an End, thanks Chris, and sold more than 10 million copies, making it one of the highest-selling albums of the decade. Despite some criticism from the press about it, Nelly's sexy new image proved to be a gamble worth taking. She defended her evolution to much music.
The first album I was going, this is who I am. This is who I am. Can you hear me? This is who I am. And the second album I'm going, wait, who am I? Where do I come from? That's why I was exploring the folk and my Portuguese roots and everything. And then once I worked past that, I got to this place like on Loose where I'm feeling comfortable in my own skin. I'm feeling comfortable as a woman. I'm feeling more sensual. I'm feeling more happy about life. And so I'm just expressing that on the record. You just hear it. I just feel like I'm there for the party. I'm there to hang out and make good music. So, I love all 3, but as an artist, you have to keep growing. You have to keep challenging yourself and pushing yourself and going, where could I go next?
18 years after its release, Promiscuous is still finding new audiences. It got the highly coveted seal of approval from Gen Z, earning its own TikTok dance challenge, which is all about the tried and true teenage pastime of kissing your bestie. Not weird. And like any good hit of its time, it's become an essential add to any retro aughties playlist. According to the Nelly Furtado charts account on X, Promiscuous generated more than 6 million streams in the first week of 2024. After all these years, the song still knows what we want and it's got what we need. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Nelly Furtado's huge hit Promiscuous on Encore. And remember, did you get it from me or did I get it from you? I mean, new episodes every Thursday.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these. This is Encore. Cool. The stories behind the songs. Thank you. Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Yes, it's about time for my arrival. I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Christina Aguilera's Dirrty. In many ways, the mid to late 1990s were the golden age of so-called bubblegum pop. As technology began to evolve, so did the world's pop stars, with what seemed like an endless supply of perfectly groomed, perfectly styled, young boy and girl next door type pop stars that smoothed off all the edges found in contemporary rock, hip-hop, and R&B, leaving fans with a slew of safe pop idols to worship. Did they have personalities? Sure, probably somewhere under the spray tans and bleached hair, but personalities are unpredictable, and in a time before downloads and streaming, unpredictable was dangerous to the bottom line. There would always be innuendo in pop music, with a sparkle in the eye of a singer belting out suggestive lyrics, or a bit more skin being shown in a music video than you'd normally see at your local community centre. But there was a bubble that was not to be popped when promoting pop music, and most stars played it safe. Of course, that's not to say the pop stars of this era weren't talented. You only need to look as far as budding young singers like Mandy Moore, Justin Timberlake, and Britney Spears to recognize that these artists had the chops and the dedication to make it in any era, as they would all eventually break free from the cookie-cutter mold and show the world their true selves. Christina Aguilera, one of the famed students of the Mickey Mouse Club of '93, which, of course, also introduced the world to Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and JC Chazé of NSYNC, as well as Canadian hero Ryan Gosling, debuted her self-titled album in August '99 at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with the smash hit Genie in a Bottle. Also topping the charts mere months after contemporary Britney Spears did the same with Baby One More Time. Genie, described at the time by Washington Post's Richard Harrington, finds Aguilera offering sweet rewards if she's rubbed the right way, but there's nothing particularly sexual in her offer, which suggests more adolescent heat than adult fire. After all, Aguilera's just entering her senior year in high school. With Genie in a Bottle, a certified hit, Christina was off to the races. Critics and producers alike identified a talent in Aguilera that brought her well-deserved comparisons to the legendary voices of Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, straddling the line between pop genius and R&B royalty. But with a backstory and a look so similar to the incredible Britney Spears, Christina's record label wasn't all that interested in building the next R&B sensation. They wanted pop, baby. And so pop Christina became. Speaking with Washington Post in early 2000, executive producer Ron Fair, whose name and influence you may recognize from our Black Eyed Peas episode all the way back in season 1, explained that he very much saw Christina Aguilera as a raw talent who would benefit from the guidance of industry types to help her reach the highest levels of success, saying, "When I met her, she was a world-class singer, but hadn't really formed opinions about what style she wanted to sing or what her direction should be. Building a collection of songs that would become her first album was a time-consuming process. We wanted to find the ones that could knock the door down and put her up there." Christina was just 18 and she needed to connect with her audience, and there was never any question that Genie in a Bottle was the way to do it. In our business, it's more important to start off with a number one record and a debut act than it is to start off with a great song. But it's still great sugar candy. What's interesting about that quote is that in the exact same interview, Christina herself would go on record to essentially disagree with her boss, telling the paper, "I was held back a lot from doing more R&B ad-libbing. They clearly wanted to make a fresh-sounding young pop record, and that's not always the direction I wanted to go in. Sometimes they didn't get it, didn't want to hear me out because of my age, and that was a little bit frustrating. Since all the success, it's a little easier to get my opinions across. I want to take this next record to the next level. I don't want to be just a straight pop singer. I'm a vocalist, and that's what I want to be seen as in the long run." Christina wasn't shy about her uneasiness around Genie, even telling much as Rick Campanelli the song was not her first choice for a debut single.
I didn't really want it to be the first single because, well, I'd grown up listening to, like, Mariah and whatnot, and I sort of wanted, like, a Vision of Love type of, more of a, maybe a ballad or something that showcased more vocally, and I thought Genie in a Bottle just fit too well into what was going on in pop today.
Sure. To be fair, his formula did win out in the long run, fueled by her talent, undeniable sugar candy addictiveness, and admittedly a little bit of Christina versus Britney tabloid fodder. Aguilera's debut would go a nearly unfathomable 8 times platinum before the end of the year 2000. Now, clearly sitting at the head of the pop star table, and with the sounds of pop music shape-shifting around her, Christina Aguilera was ready to break free from the bubblegum pop package she had originally been presented in. By the end of the year 2000, in a move that probably surprised everyone but Christina herself, and possibly anyone who took a critical reading of that Washington Post piece, Christina fired her manager, Steve Kurtz. Kurtz, as you might expect, was very satisfied with the way Aguilera's career was going. After all, she was making money for everyone around her. But in an interview with USA Today, Christina explained that it wasn't all as rosy as it appeared on the outside looking in. When you're part of a pop phenomenon, you have so many opinions shoved down your throat. People try to tell you what you should do, how you should act, what you should wear. At the same time, things started happening for me. It was popular to be the squeaky clean, cookie-cutter pop singer, but that role didn't speak to me. People want to see a white blonde girl stick to a safe, good girl image. Not that I'm trying to be the bad girl. I just want to be real, to be myself. People don't really know who I am yet. Now, under the tutelage of veteran super manager Irving Azoff, Christina Aguilera was ready to give her image a major shakeup and show people who she really was. It was time to enter the era of Xtina. First came the wildly successful pop super collab interpolation of Lady Marmalade for the Moulin Rouge soundtrack. The 2001 track saw Aguilera team up with Pink, Lil' Kim, Maya, and a cameo from Missy Elliott as they performed a rightfully campy and sexed-up version of the song in a cabaret-style music video described by Pink as a circus on acid. Missy, upon reflection, some 2 decades later, would tell Vibe magazine, "We wanted to showcase each of the 4 badass chicks from the Moulin Rouge, bringing together their different skills and personas into a true celebration of diversity, talent, and female unity." The song was quirky, raunchy, and definitely different than anything the featured artist had released before, modernizing and paying homage to musical theater in a way pop music usually shied away from. Despite, or maybe thanks to all of that, the song would go on to be the top-selling song of 2001, selling over 5 million copies worldwide, and would go on a 5-week run at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. If Christina's mind wasn't already made up that perhaps letting her freak flag fly would in fact be good for business, and that blurring the lines between pop, hip-hop, rock and R&B, with a little campiness thrown in for good measure, the proof was in the pudding, or I guess marmalade for now. Christina would tease as much during the press conference at the 2001 MTV VMAs, saying,
I'm doing something very creative right now. I'm getting... It's almost like therapy what I'm going through right now with my record, and I'm really getting personal with it. It'll be a very personal record and exploring all different kinds of music, and it'll be very interesting. You know, it's I can't really do the straight pop thing anymore. Like, my heart's not in it. I have to do something else and spread my wings a little further, because
Christina Aguilera would begin production on her next studio album in late 2001, enlisting the likes of Alicia Keys, Scott Storch, and Linda Perry to help write and produce a record that felt true to who she was and who she was becoming. Starting with a clean slate both personally and professionally, Aguilera had just broken up with her first serious boyfriend, George Santos, which originally delayed proceedings by way of broken heart, but eventually helped her tap into a raw, personal side of her voice that perhaps she'd kept stored away in her cookie-cutter days. The album would be aptly titled Stripped, a name with many meanings, referencing the aforementioned raw approach to singing and songwriting, the lack of pretense and pop perfection found in her previous efforts, and of course, well, you know, let's rip the band-aid off here, nudity. Yes, the now iconic album cover was as simple as it was shocking at the time. A grayscale Christina standing seductively and empowered on a plain white backdrop, arms stretched out behind her head, completely topless, if not for her long, unkempt hair draped down in front of her breasts to appease the censors. Needless to say, the look alone was a complete 180 to the girl next door bubblegum pop Christina had been previously packaged as. She would say,
you know, I was 17 at the time, so green and fresh and new to coming out with, this whole, coming into this whole world. And, you're kind of under the thumb of the label and whatnot to do in whatever it's what they want you to. And it's been really nice. I named the record Strip just for that very reason. I was able to I got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I'm not great at faking my way through trying to live up to a perfect kind of virginal America's sweetheart kind of thing. So I just have to be me, and whatever that is, if it disagrees with people's opinions or whatever, so I just have to do my thing. And that's why I just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore, and I just stripped every layer of all that kind of like overly popped out stuff down to just the bare me, and that's why I really called it Strip, no matter how many people are going to think that's a sexual connotation or whatnot, especially coming off the Dirty, which is a misrepresentation of the record, but it's cool. I'm excited, and it is a change, but it's like, who doesn't grow between ages of such and such? And I think some of my younger fans are older now, and music has even changed since then. And a lot of songs out there, like I don't know, you take Nelly, Hot in Here, like that's a huge hit, and it's like, I don't think, you can't please everyone at the same time, and if I would be disappointing other fans who would be disappointed if I stuck with the same thing and didn't move on.
If the genie was in the bottle before, it was all the way out now, and Xtina was here to use up all of the wishes. Let's get this out of the way. Dirty wasn't really a hit song upon its release. In fact, it actually became the first of Aguilera's releases to not even enter the top 20, debuting at number 67 in September 2002, and actually never climbing any higher in America than a disappointing 48. Follow-up singles Beautiful, Fighter, Can't Hold Us Down, and The Voice Within would all perform much better than Dirty on the charts. We did get Dirty to number 7 here in Canada, for what it's worth. But let's face it, Dirty was never intended to be a global smash hit, simply on the merits of the audio alone. This was a rebrand relying on visuals, shock factor, and a pre-social media kind of virality that would fit right in 2024. The first voice you hear on Dirty and the first face you see in the music video is that of rapper Redman, as the song itself is a pop recreation of his song from just a year prior called Let's Get Dirty, I Can't Get Into Club. Christina worked closely with the song's original producer, Dana Rockwilder Stinson, to ensure that Dirty wasn't just sampling the Redman joint, but a full collaboration, wanting it to have serious hip-hop credibility as much as anything. In the official press release for the album, Aguilera explained how it came to be.
Dirrty is also that's just more about, I definitely had a vision of what I wanted to come out with, and I wanted to come out with a harder beat, something more explosive, and I listened to a lot of hip-hop, and I just felt that most comfortable coming out with one of those kind of beats. I went to Rock Wilder for that particular beat because he had done a song with Redman called Let's Get Dirty that I would love so much that he kind of did a beat for me similar. I said I wanted something similar, and then I slept on that track for a while on this one, Dirty, because I thought it might be too similar. But then I almost played up to the similarities, got him to appear on it and call it Dirty, and played up to that whole fact. But it's just about being 21. And if you go to any club, you're going to see, any 20-year-old. That song just reflects me being 21, having fun, experiencing life, and doing, just being 21 and not getting to have lived that, having been working so much and whatnot. So that was also a little bit of the break that I just wanted to disappear for a little bit and take my time with the record. And
a scantily clad Christina starts the video off with a tunnel-visioned extreme close-up of her rear end, emblazoned with a large X on the bikini bottoms of a sexy motorcycle outfit. Redman declares, "If you ain't dirty, then you ain't here to party." And we're off to the races, or the cage fight, more accurately, as Christina is lowered down into an underground fight club and released from a cage. The wrestling ring turned dance stage is home to a seductive bit of choreography where Christina, dressed in the now iconic assless chaps and bright red bikini bottom, rides around between her female dancers and a group of entranced and sweaty male onlookers. There's twerking, stripping, grinding, boxing, and an insanely suggestive water drink and spit shot in the corner of the ring that would make viral sensation Hawk Tuah Girl proud. Christina fights a luchador outfitted opponent while Redman spits his bars past a mud show of wrestlers and carnies of the underground. There's even a very unhygienic costumed bunny walking around. I mean, I guess the song is called Dirty, right? The video finishes with one final dance scene in a group shower because after you get dirty, you got to get clean, naturally. Directed by veteran director David LaChapelle, the goal of the video is to completely strip away any sense of glossiness to Christina's image, which is why there was so much excess on display.
I have to have some kind of raw energy or edge to it, and that's where the boxing kind of came in. Our whole idea working with David LaChapelle, who I'm a huge fan of his photography, this is my first opportunity to work with him. I was really excited. He had some crazy ideas and combined it with my vision. I didn't want him to make it too glossy or pretty either. I wanted it to be kind of gritty and a little dirty. I mean, go along with the song. We were filthy by the time, we dirtied up our clothes and everything. We kind of rented out kind of a basement. We wanted it to have almost this underground, not really club, but club-esque kind of just party where everybody can just come together, just have a good time and just be crazy. We had shots of Redman was walking through a hall where there's mud wrestlers and crazy, weird dimensional bodybuilders and what else was there? Plushies, crazy things. That's definitely a David LaChapelle idea, that one. But, we wanted in the boxing. I've been boxing for a little while now. Haven't been on it as much, but it was so much fun to box in the video. It was my first time really trying to go at it for real, not really following through with my punches, but it was fun to do that and, not be so prissy girly kind of thing. It's just not my thing anyway. So, a little bit of both. I think sexy tough is a good combination for a female.
Later described by MTV making the video as a post-apocalyptic orgy, the piece was both loved and loathed by audiences. Hilariously, because the internet is forever, some early written interviews with fans in the weeks following the video's debut are still available in archive form. So rather than just telling you what the critics were saying, let's dive into some fair and balanced critiques from the public at large, shall we? And of course, these do not reflect the views of myself or anyone at iHeart. I think she's dirty. She needs to go to church, a fan named Minerva observed. She's trying to be like Britney Spears with all the guys dancing around her and being all slutty. Seriously, she looks like a total hoe, said a guy named Alex. Not cool, Alex. She's practically wearing nothing, but I like it, exclaimed a man named Matthew. And finally, Wow, that's my baby's mama right there, said Floyd. Boo, I'll eat your toes, officially. Are we sure this wasn't an Instagram thirst trap comment section circa the 2020s? In all seriousness, though, the early 2000s were a particularly misogynistic time in pop music. And although, of course, Dirrty was certainly intended to shock and provoke, the intense level of slut-shaming on display for a music video is mind-boggling under a more contemporary lens. Entertainment Weekly called Aguilera the world's skeeziest reptile woman. Time magazine said she looked like she'd arrived from an intergalactic hooker convention, while writer Emma Forrest pearl-clutched saying, "To say that this is normal young woman's sexuality is just not fair. Even Madonna never did this to girls." Christina would respond in a quite level-headed way, telling Blender magazine at the time, "I like to shock. I think it's inspiring. When you're bold and open, artistically speaking, in music and in video, a whole bunch of people automatically feel threatened by you, especially in Middle America. Okay, I may have been the naked ass girl in the video, but if you look at it carefully, I'm also at the forefront. I'm not just some lame chick in a rap video. I'm in the power position, in complete command of everything and everybody around me. To be totally balls out like that is, for me, the measure of a true artist." And fair enough, she's not wrong. Aguilera is never once shown as less than anyone else in the video. Never sexualized in a way that she isn't enthusiastically participating in, and even when paired with the suggestive lyrics of the song, paints Christina as a real badass. Oh, and what probably won't shock you to learn, the song was a #1 video on MTV almost immediately. History would be much kinder to Dirrty than the critics of its time. In 2017, Bustle's Amy Roberts published a piece noting that what people really had a problem at the time was that it wasn't made to specifically fulfill heterosexual male fantasies and had an aggressive sexuality not accessible to the masses. Comparing it to Britney Spears' Slave for You, for example, Roberts asserts that that video, of course, presented Spears as virginal and pure. And even though there was a similar level of sexuality and innuendo on display, there was far less backlash because it was neatly tucked away under the guise of being intended for male fantasy. In 2018, Christina herself told W Magazine that of course she was trying to do something different, something provocative, but that she was taking inspiration from very real cultural movements and subcultures that she consulted with at the time. It was authentic as you could get, even if the critics didn't understand.
It was living life at 21 at its best and bringing chaps to the scene and controversy flared. And sometimes that's what being creative, being an artist, being a risk taker is all about. And I look back at that video as just being one of the best times. What was funny about this video is that I didn't think it was anything to me. I was just having so much fun with my girls, and years later it was called like twerking, I guess, but like it had been around for a long time. I was spending time with a lot of dancers that were doing it before it was like a thing that was given even a name. You know, years later, Kylie Jenner, you know, wearing the chaps, and Miley Cyrus, you know, putting it in her concert, and all these little nods and, you know, them killing it in their own way.
And of course, it wouldn't be just cultural icons, Miley Cyrus and Kylie Jenner paying homage to the Dirrty video and its looks. The video has continued to inspire looks from Troye Sivan in his 2023 video for Rush, and even Canada's own Tate McRae paid tribute in her video for Exes. There really is no limit to the amount of influence Stripped as an album had on modern pop music, with Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Sabrina Carpenter giving it its due as one of the most successful albums of a generation. Sabrina's even gone on record to say that Stripped is the entire reason she wanted to become a singer. No official record on whether it's also why she's working late, though. In a well-deserved retrospective in 2017, Idolators Mike noted that Stripped has essentially become the blueprint for divas making the transition from teen idol to adult pop star, while The Fader named it one of the greatest, most crucial albums recorded by women. Dirrty is, of course, forever a huge part of that legacy, one of the first real risks taken in a world of pop music that actively encouraged the opposite, or to quote Xtina herself, a little naughty, a little rowdy, and a little unruly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to pick up my bunny suit from the dry cleaners. I knew I shouldn't have lent it to Redman. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Christina Aguilera's Dirrty on Encore, with new episodes every Thursday.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these.